how to get there now. I mean, gosh, I hope so, but that board, Lindstrom, Charlotte Humphreys board, they did a lot of wonderful things.
David Bowerman. is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he was on there.
I saw him working at Lowe's. Yeah.
Uh-huh. He's enjoying being out and about.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, Richard Martin, yeah. So hopefully we will get. Isabella, did you get RSVPs from people?
You're kind of close to the line.
Okay,
For
well,
the forum. I did ask
Okay.
and I called, but, no, somebody's in court. Dwight's in court.
Okay.
Marvin Moss has a cold.
Yeah, I'm requiring.
And he also could,
Oh.
and supervisor.
Nice.
And you get red bears and stuff.
I found one at the back gate the other day that we're gonna have to assassinate, and our neighbor has one just on his side of the fence. I was reading about the DOF replacement thing, but of course, when I went to sign up 3 or 4 days ago, it was all sold out already, or all accommodated. They probably had 20 when they could have used 2,000 anyway.
A good point about.
Well, I was disappointed anyway to learn from the DOF worksheet.
Things I'm pulling out of our bylaws today.
Cutting them without putting the boys
The election is.
But
we
that's
have
what they say about the
has to go
Atlantis too,
to
except we use 20% vinegar on the Atlantis stuff. And
includes
it takes
the
2
chair,
months,
the
2 years. and
vice
then they
chair,
get even
treasurer,
greater.
also.
So
uh,
I'm tempted to try that with the bread.
That they just. more regularly.
No, actually, they are.
The other one is even less, more dangerous because it'll tend to blow.
And I think that might be a
Mowing, I
good
guess, will
way.
take care of.
I'm not trying to create.
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking. Then we could have a subgroup that's still empowered to like carry out the functions of the RRBC.
Really, maybe.
If things do come up, you know, we added the donation policy last year where we can accept donations. Let's get them for grants along those lines. And I think having the executive in place to be able to.
We used to take the time and have food. Yeah, I said, don't bring any more down here. It's got all that thorns that works right through the top.
No, I know, you're really.
I've
What
never
did you
been
say?
close enough to one to notice.
And I, yes, it's just a hypothetical there. I know it's, that's on the radar in Charlottesville.
So maybe we burn it up instead or something.
Yeah, my parents live. at
Yeah, I'm sure you must.
Thinking for the baby Atlantis, I was gonna put
He's still.
vinegar on it, hey, and then like a gauze pad or something on it, and put vinegar on that, and then
Try
the foil on top to put
They're
it all in
working
there for a
with
while.
a law firm, I
And then
think, to.
They say you're supposed to hack and squirt, make the little hatchet cuts around and put the trickle of beer or some goddamn thing in there. But I don't wanna have it without.
Does that matter whether it's apple or white?
The strength of what they are.
Strength.
20% is what you need, you probably kills right.
Well, I mean, I don't live at the lake, so I don't have my ear to that part. It doesn't hit me in the pocket.
A lot of the pesticides are so dangerous for the people using them. Nobody, you see all these grounds people out hired
Like Montecito, they're subsidizing.
to do stuff, and they're not wearing anything, and they're owners, their employers are just putting them at terrible risk.
I used to subsidizing, yeah, my kids. You were Dane.
I'm not sure what the rates compare to the
All 4 of them subsidized. We had a few days. I said, if I got anything to be bringing back. Yeah, you know.
People used to not think.
Right.
Still want to ignore it. That's really.
You know, hands absorbs through your skin.
Then you take it home and your children come and sit on your lap, and clothes they're wearing all day long. I mean,
Okay, and I can point this. I have one.
Make sure. Okay.
all right.
Just back and forth.
Thank you for living all the way down here.
You're welcome. No, that's right. Well, I mean, is that the last? I don't like this. This is climate.
If
not.
How
are you?
Tell us about it.
Good. If I can sit down. Yeah, oh, yeah, really. Oh, you never know. Oh, nice. It's really helping. Yeah, and I think.
That's the thing.
Really understood. Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. No example, but get so complicated. What I'm trying to do
From
over
running.
there. Of course, you see the initial story and stuff.
That's a pain in the ass.
Going on.
Takes
Yeah.
forever to heal.
We don't have a real answer. We've got people working on it. Yeah.
To the
west. So that was in front. Well, we kind of know how the water got in, but why did it get in?
Everything.
Pumps not working, it's not working. It's so big now, overwhelmed stuff. It's those foundation probably, but we're studying it. We got it. We're studying it. There's not explicit rules that says. Yeah. Yeah, they're looking for what caused it too, so then you can go into the policy to figure out what, how much. Project. Such a short. Yeah. We worked day and night, as I'll say, to get that set up.
Get it.
And then we just took it all apart and put it in. So it's quite an operation, really. When you think about 50 million gallon a day.
One away from forum, and I know one other person's coming.
Okay.
So maybe we give it just. 2
All the
minutes.
folks building are different things. Even my laptop is wrong. So I will, we have one after on my phone, so we'll wait another minute for that person to get here. Or we can start our introductions.
Maybe just 1 minute.
All right, one
Maybe
minute.
on the call.
I'll wait for you to give us the word then.
Two 2:41. You're on Mac and they're not district extended, right? Oh,
Sure.
that's not the right.
This is like fold them over at the end. I just don't understand like how you do
Second floor.
that. So,
We just-
No, I think there's nothing on the back.
yeah.
Can you tuck the tail in under the sideways or something?
Maybe I'll slide it under.
Yeah.
Maybe it hurt your head.
No, it's like a hurt.
That would have to be stuff on the back. Mine has it on both sides. Yeah, okay.
It's like that.
There you go.
Yeah, so actually.
Stress fracture, yeah.
Yeah, I think I probably did it myself. I'm in denial.
It hurts like
That is. I will.
to me, it's stuff from the bathroom.
It's gonna be for 1 minute, so why don't we just go ahead with comments from the public and we'll come back to the approval of the agenda in minutes.
Okay, we will do that. Welcome, everyone, to the March 19th meeting of the Rivanna River Basin Commission. And we'll jump to item 3 on our agenda. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address us?
Be
Please
glad to.
step right up.
I'm Dave Sly with Wild Virginia. And frankly, I noticed that you had on your agenda something about PFAS and things that we had brought up. And so I figured it made sense to come. I really wanted to answer questions if you had them, but I have some paper for you. I know you don't need any more paper,
All right.
but just in case. You know, we brought up the discharge from the Scottsville wastewater treatment plant because it's being processed right now. But we had got data from the authority, the State Water and Sewer Authority, showing that they had PFAS plants. And, you know, frankly, we were grateful to them for doing the sampling and for giving us the results, because most of the, as far as we know, most of the wastewater plants throughout the state haven't sampled for it and are not anxious to do so because they don't want to get the results, frankly. So we were happy that that was there, but then it showed that there were PFAS in those discharges, which frankly doesn't surprise us because an awful lot of these plants are going to have PFAS. But what we've been doing on a larger scale is we've been telling DEQ, you've got to do this because these are permits that you issue to these wastewater plants. And so far they've refused to confront it. In fact, in the permits that we have commented on and the permits that we've reviewed, they won't even mention PFAS in their supporting documents or in the permits. And that's not allowable. Frankly, they're not living up to their legal responsibilities. And so they're the primary target of the comments we're coming up with. But again, since we had some data for the authority here, we wanted to raise it. We made comments to the DEQ, which I have copies of here. But we also wanted to reach out to the authority. We've done this in other places too, because we know that municipal authorities or towns or cities, they're not creating this stuff and they're not bad guys here. They're just confronted with a situation that they're going to have to deal with. And in the long run, dealing with this, in our view, makes sense to start now instead of waiting 6 months or a year or 5 years, even though DEQ is not enforcing or forcing anybody to do it right now. We think it makes sense to go ahead and figure out what's there, figure out what to do about it. And the fact is that, you know, the federal government is starting to take it seriously. And in fact, they have allocated a bunch of money to help people deal with it. And from my experience, when the federal government has some money, if you're there early, you have a better chance of getting that help. And so again, we want to work with the authority here. We want to work with municipalities around the state, which is what we're trying to do. And that's why we've reached out. As far as Rivanna, again, we know Scottsville's not in the Rivanna Basin, it's down going into the James. But those other 3 plants, I'm pretty sure that we have data for. They are something to be thinking about for the Rivanna. So I'll stop there. I don't want to give you a speech, but I'm glad to answer any questions you have. And I'll pass these around. There's way more I think they would need, but maybe you start on those. Okay. But again, any questions you have, I'm glad to try and answer them. Again, I'm Dave Slott. This is Jackie Goodroom. She's
speak as well, actually.
Yeah.
That's okay. Just to reiterate what Dave was saying about how the Department of Environmental Quality has the authority under the Clean Water Act to establish effluent limits in pollution discharge permits, and that they are not taking that initiative, even though in December 2022, EPA directed states to use their Clean Water Act authority to do this, and it's making your job harder to keep our waters clean. So we want to work with you in pressuring the state to take action and do what it's legally required to do.
What was your name again?
Jefferson Goodrum.
Thanks for joining us.
And I'm also with South Virginia.
Thank you.
That's right.
Okay.
You can keep the extra paper or you can give it back to me if you want. If you don't want it.
I think wastewater discharges are somebody else's drinking water, so we all have to be involved in that.
Yeah.
For Mr. Moyer is, I'm sure tired of hearing me say that, but I will need to.
Do you know the effect on, is it a concentrating effect on biosolids?
I know that we're finding in a lot of biosolids. I don't know the quantitative kind of, you know, what you've had in wastewater versus what's showing up in the sludge. And the fact is, there's an awful lot we don't know. And again, that's to me the reason to start trying to figure out right now, because there's so many unknowns. And that's another reason we're not saying that anybody's a bad guy here. You know, we didn't know. I've been in water quality my whole life. more than 40 years. Nobody ever heard of PFAS, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And frankly, I never paid any attention to the last several years. And so we just want to help figure it out. But we're not tolerant of the stuff, and we won't be. And the fact is that they will eventually require something in their permits and with their application. But we say, wow, wait,
Yeah, it's important to know that other states are already doing this. Colorado, even last week, just put limits in a permit for a large industrial discharger. And North Carolina has been doing it for a few years now. So Virginia is behind. And what you're seeing is that where the state isn't taking action, you're seeing citizen lawsuits starting just the past couple of months. So
pretty much every week since the beginning of the year, we've seen yet another lawsuit in Alabama, Georgia, it just Texas. And again, why wait?
That's relying on the Clean Water Act in for 2022, you said, through EPA.
yes.
Okay.
Well, the authorities to deal with them as pollutants have been there forever.
Right.
But what EPA did is they said, okay, we're laying out what they call a,
Guidance document.
but they call it a pathway or something like that.
Roadmap.
That has a whole,
Yeah,
there you go.
thank you, the roadmap, yeah. They
And-
lay out sort of their 5-year plan on a particular issue.
And I'll say, we commented on the Roanoke wastewater, which is a big wastewater plant, which has tons of flow going into the Roanoke River. There, they've already had PFAS problems in their water supply that they've already spent millions of dollars dealing with. And although that's upstream of their discharge, they've clearly got a problem. They've measured it downstream in the Smith Mountain Lake, which is miles away. So the bed, like you say, if somebody's water supply is already involved, that's the Bedford water supply. And so again, we said to them, let's not wait. Let's not deal with tens of millions of more cost on drinking water. We can try to hit it off.
Well, the producer pays, which is the DuPonts and the 3Ms, is the fair way rather
Yes.
than sticking it to the water, the end user and treater and
Yeah.
customer as usual. So hopefully we will get there as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Jason.
This may be in your letter that I haven't read yet, so apologies, but the data you provide from RWSA is in nanograms per liter, and everything from the EPA and DEQ is usually parts per trillion. How do we get on the same page? with
Same
that?
thing.
Exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nanograms per liter is the same as parts per trillion.
Okay.
I have.
Compared to
Pretty
the
small.
CLs that are proposed the maximum contaminant
Yeah.
levels.
The current one, first of all, they started with 70 parts per trillion, and now they're down to 4.
Yeah.
And soon to be lower as soon as the testing capability is there.
And actually, the recommended is 0.
For water.
Yes, for
For drinking
water.
Drinking
For
water.
drinking water.
Right,
That's
drinking water. And and they can only measure down so far. And once they can measure down farther, they're probably gonna go even lower. Yes,
Are you asking the commission to do anything?
no, just to, continue a conversation. And if we can give you information, or if we can give you support or whatever, that's part of what we're saying is if the water authority is gonna have to do things, they want the public behind them. And we're more than willing to help spread that word.
Well, go ahead, David.
About-
Look like you're about to
I was
ask. a
going to
question.
ask him about, it seems like it's a correlation between at least 2, one at Glenmore and one at Scottsville, June and July. And I mean, it seems like it's a higher rate or percentage. And I was just wondering, why is it? Is it because of dry season?
I think we don't know. Again, that's just one of those things. One of the things you don't have there, they gave us the spreadsheets with all the data. And each time they monitored, in a certain month, they might have sampled 10 specific kinds of PFAS. People are saying there's probably 20,000 kinds of PFAS. And we're only measuring, probably at the most, people might measure 40 of them. That's what EPA has recommended. So it's a different mixture of different kinds from one month to another. So figuring out, and you'll see that the numbers are higher in what's going out of the plant than what's coming in. That's a little bit of a mystery. I mean, there are theories about why that happens. One thing that happens is in a system, they change forms. You know, they might dissociate or break down and come in as one form, go out as two others. You know, so it's complicated.
Agenda where I'll talk about the PFAS, and you guys can
Come back to
definitely
me.
add in.
That's good.
But we have Bill Moyer from
Yes.
RWSA joining us for a presentation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For now. we're
Yeah,
gonna-
we'll get back to
Okay,
you.
it's here.
Hey, how are you?
Send me the two back to.
Okay. Yeah. PFAS is an interesting topic.
Oh, yeah.
Waterfront and the wastewater front. I'll be glad to come back and talk whenever you like about those things, and
Wonderful.
because we're here to solve all the problems, but we look for EPA and the Virginia DEQ to give us guidance, and right now we don't have any, so we're on our own. But if you're ready, Ann.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
So 2024 has been a terrific year for us so far with a number of challenges. This is the Morse Creek wastewater treatment plant. Make sure I'm using this. Yeah. And I-64 is right there, headed to the west at the top of the page. So we're tucked over in the Belmont area of Albemarle and Charlottesville. And this treatment plant processes about 10 million gallons a day in wastewater. And we call it wastewater, not sewage, because it is a common collection of rainwater that gets in the system. It's from the household domestic waste. It could be from businesses like Pepsi-Cola bottling, when they wash down their machines, or a brewery maybe. I don't know that we have breweries connected to our system, but in theory, wash water from industries.
Star Hill and Crozet definitely.
They are, okay. So that's why it's a combination of all those things equals wastewater. So it's not just pure sewage from domestic purposes. We process about 10 million gallons a day here. And let's see. So we had a very unfortunate event on January the 9th, where after a large rain on the 9th and evening of the 9th, our largest wastewater pump station was overwhelmed by wastewater. And the areas of it that were supposed to be dry, housing the pumps, became submerged, and the pumps went underwater. And a few days after that, they stopped working. So we've had to build what we call a bypass around the pump station, so we can continue to process all the wastewater that comes to us every minute of every day. And we've successfully done that. So we have two major pump stations at Morse Creek, and one, the largest, the Rivanna, we call it the Rivanna pump station, serves the yellow area. So it's about half, the northern half of Charlottesville, and all of the developed areas almost out to green. The blue area is served by a second pump station we call Morse Creek, and that serves the southern half of the city and some of the southern developed areas of the county. And the wastewater from Crozet is actually pumped back to Morse Creek, and we process and treat the wastewater from Crozet at Morse Creek treatment plant. So we have two pump stations. Making sure I'm doing it. Okay, here are the two. We have Morse Creek, which is sort of near our entrance. The Rivanna to the north side. This is Morse Creek. This is a Rivanna pump station. So what is a pump station? A pump station is a facility with pumps in it, mechanical machines, which help us to lift water to a higher elevation. It pumps it to a higher elevation. So the Rivanna pump station was built in 2017 for a little over $30 million. And it can lift and pump up to 53 million gallons per day when it's operating properly. And it is designed to lift wastewater 110 feet. And at our plant, it goes to the headwork, what we call the headworks. Let's see. So the Rivanna pump station's here, and we have to pump the wastewater up under a stream, which is Moore's Creek, and up at a higher elevation is what we call the headworks, which is the beginning of the wastewater treatment process. There it goes. So the Rivanna pump station is right here. And if wastewater doesn't get through the pump station, it would back up in the sewer line. And this is the sewer line that follows the Rivanna River from Dardentown Park past Riverview Park. And so we have a big pipeline that feeds and flows into the Rivanna pump station. And actually, when we had this tragedy or damage happen, we had an overflow of wastewater at the 5 stars there. And one of the things that we have data on was during the storm, the Rivanna River rose rapidly into a high elevation. We think it overflowed its bank and possibly flowed into our manhole at Riverview Park. This picture shows wastewater coming out of the manhole at Riverview Park. So not what we want to happen, but that's what did happen. I'm going backwards now. All right. So the wastewater, this is a bird's eye view of the Rivanna pump station. And the wastewater comes in a 60-inch diameter pipe right here from the red arrow into what we call the wet well. It's an open pit area. It's actually like a swimming pool down below. Half of it is 7 feet deep and the other half is 17 feet deep. And our pumps are sitting, we have 2 pump rooms. In this area, it's what we call a dry pumping room, and this area, dry pump room. And those pumps, the pipes extend into the wet well, and then they pull the water out of the wet well through the pump, and it exits out of the pump station on its way to the headworks. This is a view down into the wet well where we have these aluminum covers, and the water is supposed to stay below the covers. This is either 7 or 17 feet deep at the top of the aluminum covers. When we had the deluge, the water exceeded the height of the covers and went much higher in the wet well, the wrong way. So this is when we were building the pump station in 2016. This is where the pump is under construction and the piping here goes vertically, and that's part of the pumping and elevating the wastewater in the pump station. This is a picture of the new pumps shortly after they were finished. We have 3 pumps in each of the 2 pump rooms. So there's 6 pumps. They run at different speeds and at different times, depending on the amount of wastewater we have coming into the station. So, for example, if there was 10 million gallons, maybe 3 of the pumps are working, but if there's 50 million gallons, all 6 of them might be working. And the controls manage that process to optimize and get all the wastewater pumped through the pump station. This was what we saw on January the 10th, where our pump room was submerged with wastewater. Not a pretty sight. It's up over top of the pumps, and the vertical piping is here that you saw coming off the top of the pump. So we had to build, initially we built a 10 million gallon per day bypass pumping system, and we had to bring piping in. Contractors came in. We even had, in this picture, we had to put our guys in a boat down in the wet well because we had to pump all the water that's above the covers first. And it was a temporary pump here, and this is the pipe bringing it out so that we could get down to the covers and remove the covers so that we could get other larger pumps all the way to the bottom of the swimming pool area, if you will. So first we built a 10 million gallon per day bypass. And what we had to do is on the what we call the front of the pump station. This is the pipe that comes out of the pump station on its way to the headworks. We had to dig it up, take the elbow off, which you can see here with new piping, install a new pipe, and build manifold. Oh, I'm going backwards, I'm sorry. A manifold, this is the top of the cone of the manifold, and these guys were working at night. We worked 24/7 trying to get this put together. This is the completed 10 million gallon per day manifold. So these pipes are coming out of the wet well all the way around the building. Then the flow goes down in the ground to the existing force main pipe that takes it over to the headworks. I'll try to show you better pictures of that too. Now, this is our guys in the snow and the cold. We had bitter cold a few days and nights during that period. They worked. Here's a picture. We got the wastewater down to the top, pumped down to the top of the covers. You can see the aluminum, what we call the covers. And we've taken a cover off, and now this temporary pump is down below the cover, so we can start getting the wastewater out of the pump station below the covers. We had to get a team in and go down and spray the whole wet well to the covers with steam to clean it off. And we put in this picture, you see 1, 2, 3, 4 temporary pumps. We also had to install these steel beams because the 50 MGD bypass was much larger and we needed structural support. So that was on January 26th. This is one of the large 13 million gallon per day temporary pumps. I wish we had a person standing next to it because it's well over 6 feet tall. Very heavy. We had to have a crane to come in and handle this equipment. And this is the new piping for the 53 MGD pumping system. So in this case, let's see, I'll show you. They're building, we had to replace the orange cone manifold and build a new larger manifold for the 53 MGD bypass system. And now we've got the big 53 system hooked up. And down in the wet well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pumps are now installed below the covers, and this piping is taking the wastewater out of the wet well and around the building. One of the problems that we saw was there's a door access into the wet well at the top of the covers, and the wastewater just blew that off its hinges, and the wastewater went into the stairwell. And we think it came through a duct penetration in the stairwell, and that's what let it get into the dry pump. So this is a bird's eye view. Again, there are wet well. It's got the temporary pumps below the covers, the piping up here to combination piping, and then we pump it around the pump station into the manifold, down in the ground, and then it goes on its way to the treatment project. So this is what we would call a bypass. We're bypassing the permanent pump station and going around it, just like in traffic and roads, and the Route 250-29 bypass goes around Charlottesville. This is the same concept. We're bypassing the main pump station and pumping all the wastewater through temporary piping and to get it back into the permanent wastewater treatment system and on its way. We had contractor had to dress in all the appropriate personal protective equipment after we got the water down to go in and start inspecting. These pictures are after the water's been drained out of the pump room, and the pumps don't look too bad, but clearly not as clean and nice as they were before they were submerged. So we estimate it's going to cost $20 to $25 million to repair this pump station, about $6 million for all the temporary work, and possibly about $15 million to replace pumps and controls and electrical conduits and all the different devices that became submerged from the wastewater. We are working with our insurance company and great hopes and expectations that they're going to pay for the lion's share of this cost. But first, we have to figure out what caused the submergence before you can go into the property insurance policy and figure out if it's covered, and if so, how much, are the deductibles, this and that. But the incident occurred on January the 9th. By the 26th, we had the 10 MGD bypass in place. The February 14th, we had a 53 bypass built. And since then, we've been dewatering the rooms, testing and inspecting the equipment. The pumps, the 6 pumps now we're dismantling from the mounts, and we're shipping them back to the factory to have them inspected to see what's reusable on the pumps and the motors. The motors are doubtful because they're electrical equipment. The pumps themselves possibly could be reused, but with new motors. And just our prediction is it'll probably be the end of this calendar year before we have it all put back together and operating.
Is there even like a ballpark expectation for when the causation analysis may be done, or is that?
End of this month,
Okay.
we expect to have a report. We have an independent engineer who's evaluating it, and we'll get their report and make sure it's accurate from what they determined, and then it'll go to the insurance company, and they have their own engineers been up inspecting, and then they'll assess whether they agree. And then hopefully we can all agree on what caused it. Was it the river high flow, mechanical failure of a pump, electrical failure of the controls? Did the controls just get overwhelmed because the water rose so rapidly in the wet well? Or a combination of the above. And then you go into policy and decide how much the insurance will pay. So at the end of this month, we hope to get better insight into what the cause was.
I see you have up on February 8th to 13th, initial testing of pipes. What, do you run a pressure test?
And then on the piping in the pump room,
Right.
yeah, we did some testing of those pipes to make sure that they were watertight and they weren't the reason. Water wasn't spewing out of them somewhere at a joint, and that was what caused the pump station to flood, as an example. And we have valves in there, check valves, and did they cause the pipe to fail somehow? So,
What's the PSI on those pipes?
I'm not sure.
Well, I
It's
know
pretty high.
On the gas line, they run a 3,000 PSI. And I mean, when that valve is open, you can't speak to anyone this close. You can't hear them. That's how powerful it
That's a
is.
good question. I'm not sure what PSI we tested to. But we have 7 temporary pumps in there now. The pump rooms have been dewatered and cleaned. We're testing equipment. We're going to send pumps back for reevaluation. And our engineers are doing a causation investigation. We did have wastewater come out of the manholes back on January the 9th and 10th. We actually, when we pumped the pump station to empty it, we had to do a purposeful discharge back into Moore's Creek. And, but that ended on January the 9th. There were about 24 hours. We had to pump it to the creek because we had nowhere else to put it, and we had to get the pump station empty or lower in order to get the big pumps in place. So we hated that, but that seemed to be the best path.
If it's river rise, what contingency plans would you have to avoid this occurring again and again and again?
Well, after we figure out what went wrong, obviously we will fix those problems. Was there something wrong with the controls? We know that we had that heating, cooling duct penetration in the stairwell that we likely became a pathway into the pump room. So we've already blocked that off, so it can't happen again in the meanwhile. But that HVAC is in there because the stairwell would be what's called a confined space. If there's no air going in, we'd have to put people in respirators to go in the wet well, go in the stairs to go down in the wet well. So that's why that's put in. So it is not a confined space. We have air circulating. It's not a confined space. Would we use different types of pumps, like submersible pumps that are designed and could survive underwater? That's something we're going to explore. But the controls seem to be an area that we're really focusing on, the controls. Do they operate correctly? Because the controls went underwater also. So is there something we can do to make sure they operate properly if they do go underwater in the future? We have a large gate at the 60-inch pipe, and that would not shut fully when the incident occurred. So obviously we got to fix that as one means. If we would ever think the pump station was going to submerge again, we would shut the gate and not let any more water in, and all of it would overflow then into the river. So not a good option, but we'd rather protect the pump station in a crisis than have it be submerged again.
I was wondering, I mean, being that it's some fresh waters in it during the rainstorm like that, do you have any buildup of methane in a situation like that?
You probably could, because the wastewater has some methane, but I'm not sure what levels it would be. But that's part of the confined space issue of the spaces. If you're not ventilating them, you would have to address the methane that comes out of the wastewater.
You mentioned that the pumps continue to operate.
A few of them did intermittently. They would run for a few minutes and shut down, and we had a guy sitting there all night, and he would push the button and restart them, and they would run for few minutes and shut down. So they were working underwater, which they're not designed to. But thankfully they did, because that helped give us time to build the 10 MGD bypass without all the water discharging into the creek. But thankfully they did work for a while. Yes, sir.
I helped do with Angus and others do the Woolen Mills Dam removal, and we did a hydrological study that was required as part of the joint permit application for that removal in 2007. And the hydrological study looked at the floodplain all along there, and that's right above where Moore's Creek enters the Rivanna, a couple dozen feet above there. And the estimation was that you get 5 to 7 feet, depending on what happens to the ground around the river, of additional flow advantage in a high event. This was a high event, 20,000 CFS is what I saw on the gauges, cubic feet per second, but certainly not what I have seen at the Rivanna.
Right.
I've seen double that at the Rivanna in the late 90s during a
Yeah.
hurricane. And the only time I've seen it overflow the bank was Hurricane Fran in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that the river was out of its banks and penetrated the manhole covers, I think that is, not credible. I'm not saying I was there, I wasn't, but that to me is suspect. So my question is, how fast were you alerted if your control boards and all that were down or went haywire? How did you find out about the problem?
Well, we have staff there 24/7, and we do have electronic controls that ring alarms when something's not working properly. And in a matter of an hour or two, it was working fine. And at the end of that hour or so, it was submerged. It happened quickly, and that's not another part of what we're investigating. Did the alarms work? Did we respond? How did this happen?
I mean, let's say you did get the alarm.
Shut the gate. Probably. Shut the
Caused
gate.
the backup anyway.
That's
up
right.
The
And the
pipes.
diversion right straight to the
Right.
river.
That's right.
And
Come
the
rolling
Rivanna
out.
station is completely separate pipes, separate everything to the headworks, right?
Correct.
And there was no backup there.
Well, they connects to the headworks on the exit pipe from the building.
I mean, you
Right.
got 2 pump stations, one failed, one didn't.
Correct.
Are the similarities, do they end at the pump station name, or how similar are they? How deep are they? Why didn't Rivanna fail?
Why didn't the Moore's Creek pump station fail? The second pump station?
Yeah. Oh, I thought Moore's Creek failed and
No,
Rivanna. Okay.
Rivanna failed.
Okay.
Moore's Creek
Right.
survived.
Question stands,
Why did it work? Okay. Everything worked like it was supposed to. The pumps pumped the capacity that was coming in. And we'll look at the similarities and differences between the two pump stations. The Morse Creek is much older than the newer one, was the Rivanna pump station. So it should be more technologically advanced in that way.
Right.
10 million gallons, is that per station or, excuse me? Or total?
We have about 6 that comes through Rivanna and about 4 that comes through the smaller Morse Creek on an average day. But when we have rain, it goes up. That's where we get to the 50 million gallon capacity status.
So I know it's too soon to ask this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Your insurance company is obviously gonna make the call with their own independent investigators down in the wet well and dry well. And you're told, Michael, that hopefully by the end of this month, you'll have some sort of determination.
We'll have a report. Now, whether the insurance, it'll be after that, by the time the insurance reviews it, digests it, and have comment, but we'll have a report, we hope, by the end of this month.
And you probably can't make this projection, so it's maybe an unfair question, but let's say they grant the request for funding.
Yeah.
And they insure you, well, that would be zero impact to the ratepayers, or you?
Yes, if they pay most of the cost, it would essentially be zero impact. We estimated that if we had to pay most of it, that it would be about a 0.6 increase to our charges to the city. And I think about a similar 0.5 increase in our charges to the Albemarle County Service Authority in 2025, FY 2025, which starts in July. So I hate to say it's a small increase because it could be $20 million, but our 5-year capital plan is $370 million. So we would add 20 to it and borrow 390 instead of 370. So it's like borrowing $10,000 more for your home mortgage. It changes the monthly payment a small amount, but again, it's a lot of money, but keeping it in perspective. Small amount increase if we have to pay for it, but we're hopeful that the insurance pays at least most of it. If we make improvements that, by design, we want to make something better, we assume they may not pay for the improvements. If you wreck your 2020 year car, they don't buy you a 2025. They give you the value of the 2020. And so some of that will probably go on. So that's why we wouldn't suggest that we're going to get 100% of the money from the insurance company. We're just hoping we can get most of it.
Well, we're short on time. One of the things we included in our packet was wastewater funding opportunities for water authorities as well as local governments. So maybe that's, I'm sure you're very well aware, but just something to pass by you as you guys.
Which packet is that? This one? This one with the agenda? Oh, yeah, this one.
Yes.
Okay. And by the way, we have gotten over $3 million in federal state funding for removal of PFAS in drinking. We got a grant from Virginia's Department of Health for that. We're applying it at the Crozet Water Treatment Plant. But we have granular activated carbon, which is one of the leading technologies to remove PFAS at all of our other water treatment plants, except for Red Hill, and we're getting ready to build it there too. So we're at the forefront of PFAS removal. We just have to gauge it to the volume of water we have going through. I think down in Cape Fear, North Carolina, as Mr. Sly mentioned, they have a huge PFAS problem. They're down at the coast of North Carolina. Whatever that river is, all comes to Cape Fear, and it's collected a lot of PFAS. And I understand they're installing GAC filters, which is what we have. It wasn't for PFAS, it was for disinfection byproducts. When we chlorinate drinking water, it creates a byproduct, an acid that can be a negative. And so the GAC helps to remove that disinfection byproduct. And then coincidentally, it also helps with PFAS. So that's the good news.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Your staff for
Thank you. It's terrible what happened. We feel awful, but we're working very hard to correct it and get it permanently fixed and hopefully never let it happen again.
So just one thing, probably outside of your purview, but do you have any thoughts on the impact of impervious surface and stormwater from developed spaces on these systems and the cost of that to the public? The challenges that creates for you and the challenges, you know.
Well, the cleaner water is in our reservoirs and streams, the less it takes to treat it to make drinking water. But we're pretty blessed in our Rivanna River doesn't have any wastewater treatment plants that empty into it. No major industries that empty into the Rivanna River. It's coming from the Blue Ridge Mountains. And therefore, we're pretty blessed in that way. So runoff can have some effect, but you get a lot of wash away from rivers and stream banks just naturally. So we're not aware of any major impact from development.
Probably speeds up the flash of the velocity.
That's
of
true.
the comp,
It
because
could,
you can't
yeah.
go anywhere. So
Yeah,
that's may have been what happened. I understand it was only 3 inches of rain that really
That's
was
right.
caused this impact, and it had been May 29th, 2018, when we got 11 inches in
yeah,
the western part of the county. You know,
yeah,
at least that had slowed down by the time it got to you.
yeah. And it wasn't January when the trees and vegetation are relatively barren, not soaking up any water,
Sure.
So everything that hit the ground headed to a stream, as opposed to a 3 inches in July could be a different impact to the
There'd be
stream.
no issue.
Yeah,
We thought we Bob.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
evapotranspiration, I think they call it.
Thank you, Bill, very much.
Thank you. Anytime. Sure. No. So much.
Move backwards in the agenda to the consent.
And let's take 1 second and run around the table and introduce everybody too, because we have new folks, and sort of tell what district you represent, so we can all get to know each other properly. Isabel, you start.
Pump station.
I do get the substation.
I'm Isabella O'Brien, I'm planner 2 with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, mostly focused in environmental programs and staff support to the Rivanna River Basin Commission. Welcome to the RRBC. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, I'm Ruth Emmerich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Program Director with the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission here in support of Isabella.
I'm Angus Murdoch. I'm the Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District rep to the commission, and I'm a Rivanna County resident on the board of the Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'm one of the founders of RCA.
Yeah, well, near friend, early,
Close enough.
second generation.
Very good.
Tony O'Brien, I am the Board of Supervisor for the Rivanna District in Rivanna County. And yes, that is my daughter.
Michael Payne, Charlottesville City Council, just at large.
Dave Slam, I'm a Ruckersville supervisor and also liaison to Culpeper Soil.
Francis McGeegan is that how you pronounce it? Is also new Greene County Supervisor. He's out exhorting with Bill about something.
He's at large.
At large, okay. Ann Malik, represent the Whitehall District in Albemarle County on the board.
Lonnie Murray, former Director of the Thomas Jefferson Soil Water Conservation District and Associate Director, and I serve on the Albemarle County Planning Commission. I also serve on the Albemarle County Natural Heritage Committee. We're a little guest here today. This is climbing fern, Lygodium palmata. This is actually a rare plant in our area. This occurs at one county park in Albemarle County, but it's a riparian plant. As you can see, it's a wetland plant trying to be wet. And so this is one of the rare plants that we would be, you know, when we have vegetative buffers on streams, this is one of the species that we'd be protecting, because this is something, and it also it requires really, really clean water. So if there's any contamination at all, this dies. So it's also
Only at one.
it's only at one of our parks that we know of. And that park actually crosses the county line into an adjoining county. So but it does occur on the only other site we know of it in Albemarle County is on private property, and working with the private landowner gets access to that site. And that is also a riparian area.
Hi, everyone. Jason Halbert. I'm a city resident and appointed to the board by Charlottesville City Council as a citizen rep. And I work at a private foundation for my day job.
We've already met our Wild Virginia representative, so that's wonderful. All right, thank you, everybody. And I so appreciate all perspectives here. Okay, we can now jump down to bylaws review.
Let's approve the agenda and the minutes first.
Oh, sorry, we're cycling back. Okay, then we have approval of agenda and minutes from the 22nd of August. Are there any changes to the agenda now that we've already changed it around and put it back? Any other changes to the agenda? I see none. All in favor of adoption of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. All right, the agenda is adopted. And are there any corrections or additions to the meeting minutes from August 22nd? Which was a wild meeting. My brain was completely scrambled at the end of that, but it was wonderful. All right, I hear no corrections. So do we have a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from 8/22/23? And a second. Second minute. Okay, approved. All in favor? Please say aye. All right, very good. Then those are adopted. And we've done our comments from the public. We've done our Morris Creek pump station. Now we are down to bylaws review. Thank you.
Thank you. This will be fast. I just wanted to go over the portion that discusses elections as we move into that. So the commission's officers shall consist of a chair, a vice chair, and treasurer. Eligibility to be considered for an officer position is restricted to existing commission members and preferably should come from members representing different jurisdictions. And their terms extend from the first meeting of the calendar year or the time of their election, if later, until the first meeting of the next calendar year. They may be reelected for an additional consecutive term upon a unanimous vote from the additional terms. Or, yeah, okay. And then one other aspect I wanted to bring up about this is that per our bylaws, I had it all highlighted, but it seemed to have disappeared. Per our bylaws, we're also allowed to establish an executive committee that includes 2 non-officer positions from across the jurisdictions. And as we had determined in our last meeting, we've developed an donations approval policy so that we can accept donations throughout the year. And also just thinking for building continuity and buy-in for our annual conference, it might be good to have an executive committee with those 2 additional members that can serve to carry out the functions of the board outside of our regular meeting dates. So that's something for consideration among the board, but now we can move on to the report of our nominating committee to appoint our new officers.
And before we move on, so you would ask us to think about the adoption of the executive committee new membership for next time. Is that what to take away from what you just said?
Today.
To do it
That
later.
would be
Okay.
great as well.
All right, but we'll do that after.
No pressure from the nominating committee to say anything on the executive committee. People can raise their hand if they'd like to be a part of that.
Yeah, so for the nominating committee, I think there are objections. We would like to put forward Ann Malik again as chair, myself as treasurer. Yeah, but we still need a vice chair position, which we weren't able to find a candidate. So, a
reluctant enthusiast?
I'm very
Might
enthusiastic.
you do it if we asked politely?
If you're very polite.
Okay.
We're desperate and big.
Don't ask me to do very much.
All right, Megan. Great.
all right, so
Okay.
So we have our slate, unless there's anyone else that would like to name it for any of those positions. If anyone really wants to be treasurer, I have no offense. So,
Anyone would like to step up in any role, I'm happy to also hand over the imaginary gavel.
okay. Right.
Question for that, is that what you're looking for?
The leftover pump loaders.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it would be up to you to call for a motion.
Well,
The
We will need
committee
one.
is the motion, right?
That's right.
So it's
Your
just need a
report.
second.
Well, that's our report.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, well, I'll second or make the motion, whichever you
Okay.
need.
Is this for all officers?
For the
Just
slate.
voting
For the
once?
slate.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then I will call for a vote. First of all, I'm making sure, are there any other volunteers who would like to get involved in this action? All right, I don't see any. So all in favor of the nomination slate, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, we are now squared away on leadership. And now, is there anyone who could volunteer to join the executive committee?
I just pulled up a bit more information about that here. The only requirement is that they'll meet once between the regular full commission meetings or as necessary to conduct business. And a quorum of the executive committee is a simple majority.
Is that still an in-person quorum that's required?
Yeah, so
Okay.
If there were 5 and we had 3 in the room, the other 2 could be.
I'd have to go back
virtually
and review
meeting.
that, but I can follow
I
up.
think it's.
You in person.
I'm happy to join.
Okay, great.
I'm willing to do it as well.
Okay, great. Well, that's a wonderful start. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you join too.
All right, good. We're gonna have 3.
You have
That's
a
even better.
maximum of 5, or it's written interestingly, shall consist of 5
Yeah,
and not 6.
well, do we have representation from all of the jurisdictions in the basin? Maybe that's
We would
not.
be the same, so I'm happy to defer to you as the
You
counselor.
could be.
Okay.
As well if you-
You two fight it out.
So then
Figure out.
Tony and Jason,
What do you, Jason? That
And I
sounds
would,
good.
I'll have to look into the bylaws, but I'm sure that the rest of the commission can attend those meetings
Yeah.
if they would like. It's just that's our standing membership.
Open meeting, open to the public.
Yeah, there'll be public meetings and there will be published minutes.
and just to reiterate, we have to meet between the 2, or we just can meet?
At least once, so we have to. So was that Jason?
Um,
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, everyone.
And our officers were Anne, Lonnie as treasurer,
Yes. And Angus Murdoch as VP.
vice chair. Great.
Mr. McGuane wasn't here, so you have to.
That's right. We've nominated you for everything while you're out in the hall.
You guess you can technically need a vote, Ann.
Oh, yes. Okay, well, yes, voting on the executive committee. Any other volunteers or? All right, then all in favor of adoption of the executive committee and its expanded membership, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, it carries. We are set. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Woo, great. Now, discussion items, annual conference recap and continuity. Isabel.
For our new members, I just wanted to do a refresher on the purpose and also just make you all aware of some of our resources available to you at www.rivanna-river-basin.org. We have an entire website with an About Us page that covers the history, establishing statute of the RRBC, more information about water quality and land use in the Rivanna River Basin. And there's also a few resources available for commissioners under where you all are listed. I encourage you to review that. Additionally, plans related to the Rivanna, like stormwater reports, the urban Rivanna corridor plan are also available on our website for your review. And I won't read through this, but the establishment and the purpose of the commission is available for you to review as well there. And welcome to the RRBC. You missed your introduction. If you want to introduce yourself.
No, Francis McGuigan, I'm the at-large member for the Greene County Board of Supervisors.
And where in the county do you reside?
I am off of South River.
Okay, so west of 29.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Upstream from me. That's good. Very good. All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. So this I pulled from our 5-year work plan, which takes us through fiscal year 2027. And it's just a brief description of what our annual conference will consist of. There's not too much defining exactly what the topics are going to be or the location. And so I thought this meeting could be a good opportunity for us to reflect on the past 2 years of our conference and what we like about it, what we might want to change or consider for our upcoming conference. So make sure I can see it on the left here. You can see our values that we defined as part of our work plan development process. And I think those are good buffers for us to consider for topics that we might consider for the annual conference. But this portion I really was hoping could be discussion based. So starting strong on the positives, were there aspects of our previous conference that you found most valuable? So to refresh your memory, we covered PFAS at our September. I know some of you haven't been there, but PFAS from a range of different stakeholders. We had EPA, the Rivanna Water Authority, the Western Virginia Water Authority that dealt with PFAS in their area, the Virginia Department of Health, and DEQ all come to speak about their aspects of study and regulation development related to PFAS. We had a panel discussion at the end, which I think went pretty well. We did not have tabling organizations from local water nonprofits like we did 2 years prior. And we did also partner with the Rivanna Conservation Alliance to have a second event, which was a community science workshop where people could learn about how they could volunteer with the Rivanna Conservation Alliance and help with their water monitoring efforts. So I'll stop there.
Comments about what you learned, what your reactions were from most recent one, which was in this building in the auditorium. And then I guess, and perhaps we could throw in comparison, the previous year was at Lewis and Clark Exploratory Center, and that was about solar mostly. Okay. Any thoughts?
I thought it was very, very informative for me. In addition, I thought there was value having DEQ and other state agencies there to hear kind of specifically from them, not only what they're doing, but what opportunities may be available for us to pursue.
I would echo the same thing. I mean, they were sort of two different conferences, if you would. In feeling, PFAS conference was obviously kind of heavy on details and, you know, technical and somewhat dry, but important, I think. And I think the speakers were all very good, so I enjoyed that. But I think I enjoyed the solar one a little bit better.
One of my thoughts was that having the other community organizations there, like we did for the solar conference, kind of helped build attendance, but also provided more opportunities for people to learn about the different nonprofits that serve our area, which I thought was a bit of a strong suit to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And the other direction too, I think that
They helped.
the
Right.
we're trying to do.
What
Absolutely.
was the reason that they weren't at the previous conference?
I'm trying to remember. I feel like the location we didn't want to table too much in the main Albemarle County Office Building lobby. It didn't make too much sense to have within the auditorium itself. And we didn't have the outside portion of the conference, which was nice. The Lewis and Clark Center, we were able to do the river walk at the end of the conference. And everybody was tabling outside, refreshments and things along those lines.
Which is wonderful as long as the weather's decent.
Right.
I'm always suffering terrible heartburn about weather when we plan things in and out. 4 or 5 years ago, we did have in 235 next door, we had all the community tabling there and also down the hallway. So if I think the tabling is wonderful if people are interested in coming, and maybe having missed a year, we will also get better response from people who are interested in coming back. But I would not worry about the inability to have it within, only because if it's 95 degrees or it's raining, I love being inside. And then go outside later. I love being at Lewis and Clark Exploratory Center, except the sound is awful. And, you know, they need to be hanging felt things from the ceiling because the echoes and stuff are really difficult over there. And Alex knows this, so I'm not talking behind her back. But I think it was wonderful for that organization as well to bring people in and have them see who might not have been there before. So we did, I think, a good thing for them at that point. But with a larger crowd, I really hope that we can continue to draw a larger crowd when we have the next one. And that we will need more chairs and easier space. Jason.
I don't want to make more work, so shoot this down if you think it's a dumb idea. And I know that each county has only a percentage of their land in the watershed, not you know, Albemarle, Charlottesville's 100%, but Albemarle. But maybe moving it around the planning district might be a good idea, at least sometimes, not all the time. Just to, you know, go up to Greene County, and look at what things are happening there, do a field tour up there maybe or something. Go out to Louisa, Savannah, anywhere else where we might just bring more attention to the outlying community, because it's always been here, right, downtown area. So I thought that might be a good idea.
I think it's a good idea. You know, one thing I was saying, it would be nice to have something specific on low impact development. And better stormwater practices, and maybe even have like a tour of, you know, where you could actually, you know, go to different. So if it was distributed, you could have something actually in each locality highlighting, you know, low impact development practices and stormwater, you know, stormwater management in those areas, you know.
Like a field trip?
Yeah, like a field trip, right? Be kind of fun. Particularly if you sort of cast it in ways like you reach out to, you know, things like neighborhood associations, the home builders, you know, and different, think about, you know, because I think a lot of people know that things should be done differently, but they don't know what those things are. And I think it's interesting when you have a community that's very informed and they know what the choices are, then they tend to advocate for those choices. Like I remember a while back, there was a development in Crozet, this was a long ways back, and someone and the developer was proposing a retention basin. And they said, no, we don't want a retention basin, we want a biofilter. And so being able to understand the difference between what those options are and why one is better than the other is, I think, an important thing that somehow we could communicate.
Interesting. I think in celebration of a closeout of the NIFWIF grant, we did a tour because each county had a demonstration project. So the constructed wetland in Crozet, the garden at Charlottesville High School, and there was also a garden in Greene County. And what did we do at Pleasant Greens? Something. Whatever. It's not Pleasant Greens. It's something.
Grove.
Grove. That people did sort of truck around, which was great fun and a way to celebrate. Is this 10th anniversary? Because I was just thinking back to the 40th anniversary for the PDC, and for the 5 months during that year,
2014,
we had a major meeting in each of the jurisdictions, and big thing at what was then the brand new Rivanna High School. So that was really cool to be able to have tour there. So that might be a way to also, if this has happened to be 10 years, then we could do something perhaps in addition to maybe just one day to have visits at the various partners throughout the summer. And I don't mean to say 5 times the word either, to say we're gathering here and we'll have a presentation, and all that extra press will help to build, you know, people miss that one, well, they can go to the next one. Yeah, sort of thing. So that'd be something else to think about.
I was gonna suggest that, you know, Woolen Mills, that whole area might be kind of a cool place to do it. Just because I don't think a lot of people have really explored it yet or know, you know, it's just one of those areas there.
Do it at RWSA.
Yeah, yeah, we do it there too.
I could walk 30 sidewalks.
Actually, in Nelson County.
Woolen Mills is
Right over there.
development that was done
Just down Market
not too
Street.
long ago. Just kind of cool. Took an old, converted it. It's right by the river there. It's a nice area.
Well, if the lower level, whoever the current restaurant tenant is, would give it to us for a day, that would be, you could host a lot of people in there.
Big venue.
They do have a venue space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they moved out, Selvage moved out.
The brewery moved out, I think.
Oh, but maybe it's good.
Check the budget.
Well, and I mean, it's possible that, what's the name of that company that is in there? So
Oh,
Willow Tree.
Willow Tree, they might offer space as public service as well too. But I imagine they have a pretty big space
We'll
available.
cover the rent on the building. That would be okay. Well, that's a great idea, Tony, because there are trails all around and lots of projects in progress, both across the creek and the Rivanna as well as down there,
It's
Broadway area.
it's just a very small random thing, but at both conferences, obviously, I think the information was of a lot of interest and value to the broader community. And it would depend on the venue and format, whether it would work. But our public access TV station is always willing to come to events and film them,
Oh,
which will put it not only on TV, but it streams and there's a permanent record of it online. So that would just be an easy, free way to get a recording of it that's on TV and also online. And they're usually very open to doing that.
thank you.
Well, yeah, the nice thing about that, like,
But
Good PR.
yeah,
yeah, so I mean, if you were highlighting different kinds of sustainable practices, you could even have little videos that could be permanently hosted on the commission website, or, used as informational, videos that could be highlight what those things are. So,
You do record and post, I think we've recorded, yeah, both of the past two conferences, but I think having it professionally recorded would definitely serve a little bit better because we're using our small little.
and
things. So that's
more
a good
people than I always think watch public access TV. Obviously, it's not like the biggest thing in the world.
I wish I could get.
Especially when you're on.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to move on. We're a little
Stream.
bit over time
Okay.
for the agenda, and I pulled from your email to me to share this information, so feel free to hop in wherever or take over if you'd like. I think we're a little past this part of the agenda regardless, but if you all are okay with discussing this further, maybe we just squeeze our roundtable time a little bit. So as they mentioned, Virginia received an update from the Water Authority, which included data from the influent and effluent from 4 of their wastewater plants. And they found over 16 types of PFAS. This does not include their testing for the drinking water. And like they mentioned, they focused on the Scottsville permit because at the end of this month, it's due for a reissuance of its discharge permit. And their effort is to push DEQ to keep these substances out of state waters, not to wait until they show up in our surface water and water supplies. So you got a deeper look into their data there, but I just shared the mean, the minimum, and the max of some of the influent and effluent at the Scottsville wastewater treatment plant. And as they mentioned, their proposed re-permitting would not require any sampling or controls of PFAS for their influent or effluent. And I was kind of wondering, how often is it in Virginia, if it's not included in their permit, that they would voluntarily do the testing? We're not really sure.
Again, as I said, I give the authority here credit for actually doing any, because as far as we know, the vast majority of them probably haven't done any. In fact, we asked DEQ, do you know what discharges around the state have done monitoring? And they said, we don't really know. We'd have to do a deep search and it'd cost you $850 for us to look for it, which is absurd, of course. So we're now undertaking a search. We're reaching out to all the discharges around the state and asking them for their data to see who's got it. But the upshot is, I don't think many of them have done the monitoring. They're basically waiting for DEQ to order them to do the monitoring, and so far they're not doing that. Can I just follow up on a question?
Yep.
That, I think, Mr. Albert said before was, am I asking the commission to do anything? And I didn't originally intend to, and I'm not sure how to phrase this. I've been communicating with Mr. Tungate at the authority, and he's been very, very, communicative, and I want to keep doing that. One of the things I asked him on behalf of the authority was to tell DEQ that it should hold a public hearing over this permit. Because that would widen the public, knowledge and give other people a chance to weigh in who don't pay attention to the legal notices or the DEQ's notice. And DEQ can have a public hearing or they can't, and we can't force them to. But the more folks who weigh in and say, you should do it, the better. So if commission or individuals wanted to do that, I would urge you to do it. Because again, it's all part of the effort to get the widest public knowledge and support for the authority to do what it needs to do.
Can you remind us of the timetable? The decision is supposed, the DEQ decision is, do they have?
Well, as was up there, the permit expires officially at the end of March,
Okay.
but they can administratively hold it over. And in some of the other cases where we have been involved, they've already done that, and they have, one case, they've agreed to have a public hearing, and others, they're considering our request.
And I'll share, Mr. Sly had shared their presentation. They had a webinar about this and a document that had some proposed comments that would be shared to DEQ. So I'll share that with the entire board.
Let me be clear that the official public comments period is over.
It ended on the 14th.
But
Yeah.
if they have a public hearing, then that opens a new chance for people to speak. But the folks like you who have a position in the community, let DEQ know that they should have a public, or you think they should have a public hearing. Don't pay attention to that, even if it's not during the official comment. I believe they will.
David, this data is from the RWSA, but I'm asking, is it only for wastewater? I mean, are they not, they haven't tested drinking water?
No, I'm sure they have. And I,
PFAS.
but I did not ask for it.
And they have the system to get underwater native target.
Right,
Yeah.
and all but one, that's what he said.
And they're working on that.
And let me say, as far as your conference, the only reason I knew that they had any data was because I watched the video of your conference last year.
Yeah.
And they mentioned that they had some, which is the reason I reached out to them. But, and I don't know, because I haven't asked them what prompted them to go sample the wastewater. But I suspect it might have been, but hey, we got it showing up in the river, we got it showing up in the drinking water, so maybe we should look. And again, I used to give them credit. One other thing that I'll mention, and again, I've communicated this thing to Mr. Tungate, and I was kind of giving him the chance to respond to me. And I don't want to feel like I was kind of going over his head in a way. And I don't want to do that because he has been cooperative. But one of the things we encourage them to do, there is another analytical method that EPA recommends for wastewater. We've encouraged them to do some sampling with that method because it may be more reliable and just to continue what we started as far as monitoring.
What is,
More than.
what is that called? So I can raise it with.
It is method 1633.
Officially approved by EPA in February.
Okay, that's part of the recent framework. Okay.
It's proved, it's kind of strange wording. It's proved, it's not mandated by the EPA at this point. And that's again, the reason that EPA has told DEQ, you should have people do that method. But DEQ is saying, unless they force us. Again, folks who want to figure this out are going ahead and doing it.
And that's public pressure will bring that about pretty good.
I think so.
Yeah.
When they test, do they test as it gets to the stream, the wastewater?
Well, that's an interesting thing, and you'll see some discussion in our comments there. The Scottsville plant actually discharges to a small ephemeral stream that probably only runs part of the year. Then it goes to what's called Mink Creek and then to the James River. And DEQ did not even assess for other pollutants that they do assess. They skipped over those other streams and said, we're only looking at how it might impact the James River, which is improper. And we have called them out on that in our comments. But the sampling happens right where it goes into that first little stream. The thing there is that little bitty stream goes under the soccer fields, right through the park there, is accessible to anybody. As I know, if you have water around the recreation area, it's plain water.
Smell chlorine water.
I haven't been there that much, but I would bet you do.
I know it comes out, Ann knows where the farm is, where I grew up, but I can go down there and there's no fish right there where it comes out into the river, but and you can smell the chlorine. I mean, yeah.
One thing about that, even once it hits the James River, you think, well, you got this small discharge and it's diluted by the whole James River. The fact is that it hugs that bank right down to the boat ramp and beyond. So the part of the river that people are most likely to be accessing is exactly where this discharge would have the biggest impact.
And that's because the force of the river is keeping the discharge over to the side.
Well,
It's
of
not
course,
really
the
gonna
river,
fix right
just
there.
the nature, you can let me nerd out here because I used to be a permit writer, so I know. But the nature of the discharge and the nature of the river are usually a little bit different. So it might be slightly different temperature, slightly different kind of conductivity. So it just naturally takes it a while to mix in.
Okay.
So the concentration's greater in the river than the discharge.
No, I'm not saying that it's greater. It's
But I mean, have they established what the levels are for the river itself?
no,
Yeah.
no.
Well, then, I mean, the stuff that they may be playing in may be cleaner than the river.
That's certainly possible. But
We're not getting upstream after all.
But we know that even low levels of PFAS can have significant health effects.
Sure, but I guess my point is if the stuff that's going into the river has a lower level than what's existing in the river, it's less, I mean, it's a non-problem. That's right. I mean,
no,
Well, I would let my kids.
It may not be a problem we can do anything about.
first of all, it's going into those.
So I have his contact information
Good.
included
Okay,
in the
great.
PowerPoint, and we also shared
Very good.
information. The two extra handouts that I shared with you all were related to grant opportunities. Pretty close, so just out of respect for everyone's time, I just encourage you guys to review those. We've spoken about this in previous commission meetings, that we should continue to bring grant opportunities up for discussion to see what might be relevant to our region, perhaps to the River Basin Commission. And I included some additional ones focused just on the wastewater treatment plants, since two of our discussion items today were related to that. But the others are available to homeowners, to local governments themselves, to neighborhood associations and the like. So please take a look. And then in my follow-up email to you all, I'll be sharing our new member orientation packet that we just updated, which includes the summary of the statute, the bylaws, some resources specifically for you all to better understand organizations within our region supporting the watershed. The TJPDC developed a green infrastructure toolkit that designed just for local leaders to have a better understanding of the water quality landscape in our region. So that's available for your review. A bit of a historical timeline for the history of the RRBC and the water-related regulations and responsible government agencies. I didn't update that one, so that's a few years old, but I still encourage you to take a look. As part of our 5-year work plan, this is just pulled again directly from the work plan. We decided that we would hold stakeholder advisory group meetings to promote coordination, communication, and education within the basin as it relates to our water quality and other natural resources. Last year in February, we held our first successful meeting related to the TJPDC's stewardship mapping and assessment project to better understand the landscape of environmental groups and nonprofits serving our region. And that will provide us with a network map of how these organizations are connected. So their survey responses with information about what type of organization they are, what work they do, and then a map of their turf and where they're specifically carrying out environmental projects. So we had a range of environmental groups come for the first meeting, and then you all voted last October to discuss the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act and considerations for opting into the VSMP. But we reached out to a few potential speakers for that and it just never panned out, didn't work out. And so our plan for moving forward with the stakeholder advisory group meetings is to focus on our own initiative. StuMap is wrapping up now, so we're hoping in the next month we'll be able to have the first stakeholder advisory group meeting of this year, which you all are welcome to come and join in. And we'll be gathering feedback on the data visualization of that project that's been going on this whole year. And then for future, as part of our 5-year work plan, we are going to begin in fiscal year 2025, the Rivanna River story map and historical timeline. So we'll host the stakeholder advisory group meetings focused on that or other topics if they come up. And that's all for me. And now it is your time to roundtable for the next 5 minutes.
Great. Who wants to go first?
On a round, I'm.
ahead. Okay.
So on behalf of Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District, and ongoing, and it's primarily focused on point source pollution control, preventing erosion from farmlands, but I'm recently also doing urban conservation landscaping and rain gardens, that type of thing, and it's remarkably well funded at the moment. So encourage people to get in while things are happening.
Oh, or sorry to interrupt, but if you have any items for consideration for the next meeting, I encourage you to bring that up here or email me something.
Is there a deadline for applying for ACAP money or BCAP money or whichever it is? Is it before the end of the fiscal year? You have to get your name in the door?
I think, I mean, you can apply anytime.
Okay.
I don't know the deadlines off the top of my head.
Okay, good.
but
So rolling
it has been ongoing funding for the
Good.
past several years, especially on the ag. The ag budget is much increased and
How are you doing on getting the $5 million out the door?
doing pretty well. I mean, the trick is that many of the people who're going after the not so low hanging fruit, I think people who've been doing it for years are
Reluctant and recalcitrant. Yes. Okay.
well, we're trying to get the reluctant and recalcitrant ones in on it too.
Good.
Yeah, one of the big things with VCAP and any of the programs really is to apply for the money before you need it. Because you have to qualify, you have to be approved for the practice before you can spend any money. So if you think about like, one of the programs we pay for is replacement of turf grass with native plants. Well, if you're planning a gardening thing, you need to plan for that before the season starts. Now, we get a lot of calls around springtime because people are thinking about gardening right now. Really, they probably should have applied, several months ago so that money would be available for now in springtime. That's just sort of how the cycle ends up.
So apply 6 months in advance.
Yeah, there is a review process and it's not, you're going to walk in the door and get a check.
But there is plenty of money this year for the urban practices. And I'm curious, are you also doing VCAP up in your area as well?
Obviously.
Oh, in green? Yeah, Culpeper Soil and Water does.
Okay.
They do also have, there's no ACAP or CCAP to help further support it, but they do.
Yeah, so
I-
the county put a lot of money into it also.
Yeah, I remember
The
that,
statewide.
I remember that originally Culpeper District started the program with us. And it's actually kind of a point of pride that, that BCAP was sort of started and in the, in our district and in Culpeper. Now it's expanded to the whole bay. And that's a official statewide program. So that's really kind of nice that we pioneered that thing. And
Way to go.
We're going through the program right now. And we're planning. Yeah. I think it's reimbursement based. So
it is,
you do
yeah.
the site visit, then you fund it yourself and then.
As long as you get approval first.
Yes.
Before you do it.
We got the approval, so. Yeah.
Good. Who's next?
I mean, I don't have a lot to report per
Okay.
se. I mean, guess most of you probably know that part of the river rafters are doing an operation in Fluvanna County now. So if you want to enjoy the recreation of the river rafters, you can now do that coming into the Fluvanna side as well, different parts of the river. I haven't done the kayaking myself or the rafting, but to get from Charlottesville all the way down to Fluvanna, apparently it's a very long hike. So this will, I think, attract some more people on the Fluvanna side using the river, which will be very good from that standpoint. The James River Water Authority, which is, pooling water just right near the Rivanna there, is getting close to being a done deal, which is good. And so hopefully both Louisa and Fluvanna County will have water flowing from James River Water Authority in the next, I think we're thinking maybe by the end of 2025. Long standing project. Other than that, the big news for us specific to the Rivanna, Fluvanna County in particular, for members that have Aqua Virginia as a water and sewer company, is that the county has joined with other counties to be a petitioner in the SEC, upcoming SEC hearing to raise rates. Aqua wants to raise rates almost 30%, which we already have an extremely high rate. So the rate increase that they're proposing is about half of what most people pay for their water and sewer to begin with in other counties, on average of about $30 to $35 per household, with bills already at $125 to $150 per month. So,
Which is 4 times what for average.
right, and the increase based on the analysis that Drip Rate does of sewer, both private sewer and public sewer companies, the average rate increase is 3.8% for most of the public utilities that are doing that. This increase is 33.8% in some perspective. So
The difference between for-profit and not.
it's a big difference, but even on the for-profit side, it's extremely high. But yes, in general, for-profit, you're going to be paying a considerable amount more.
And you're stuck in a long-term contract that came in.
Contract,
a few
they own the
years ago?
system.
Okay.
They own the system.
Okay, so they have to go bankrupt before you can get your hands on it. In other words,
Yes, they would have to sell it to us or go bankrupt in order to do that. Yeah.
because I know they've been
Because, it was
strangling you guys for years and years.
oh, absolutely. I mean, the long history of it is that, Lake Monticello is a community of 4,500 homes. Aqua Virginia is, one of the providers there, that because it was a private developer at the time, who created their own water and sewer system. The lake did not maintain it as well as they should have. And when the cost came up to do the maintenance, they decided to sell it to a private company, with promises that rates weren't going to go up very much for the first couple of years. But since then, they've gone up and up and up. When we moved there 20 years ago, I think the water was $60, and now, as I said, it's going to approach $150, $160 a month. So that's the big news. You'll hear some of that. That's Rivanna related. And they do, as opposed to what the previous speaker said, Rivanna does dump their water, their clean water into the Rivanna right there. So out there. So there's one sewage plant. We've heard that on the Rivanna.
How about Green County?
We have a problem with water, a lot of problems, headaches.
great headaches. People getting bills, I mean, unbelievable. And I think the meters are broken, a lot of the meters are broken. They're not being, they never were checked right. I mean, people, one guy got a bill for $30,000.
Was that for leaks or because the decimal point was off?
Well, I mean, some piping is breaking and breaking down now, and the meters not, and we had to find them and all kinds of things. I mean, it really looks bad, you know. I mean,
We've never voted to go away from RFB. I mean, it's,
Or you were there when that disaster happened, but.
we're looking at 150. That's what I was discussing when I unfortunately wasn't able to talk before
Uh-huh.
you guys did the go around. We're looking at $160 million worth of water projects in the next 5 years for a service, well, 1/3 of Greene County, because only 1/3 is on sewer and water stream. So basically 7,000 people, 3,000 homes. So it's insanity. And unfortunately, people keep going down the road of insanity. I have one other question. So where's the implementation plan for the South Fork of the Rivanna River? It looks like the last entry was 3 years ago.
This is the
TMDL?
TMDL.
The TMDL's done, but the implementation strategy to create a mitigation is in the process of being developed, right?
And that's,
Because you've got, yeah, you've noticed. Okay.
thank you, because I lost track of that totally. And this is, because you all did the draft. And then it's in DEQ's hands now.
We didn't do the draft.
Oh, I thought.
No,
he
that's
was-
all
yeah.
D.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for asking, because I totally forgot.
For the South Fork,
Wow.
Rivanna. South Fork, Rivanna.
Yeah, because I actually did a deep dive on this before I even got involved in this stuff, and we've lost 10 streams in 10 years. And it's all basically everything west of our development corridor, kind of between Lydia Mountain and Ruckersville. And it's all due to phosphorus and sediment. It's all bentonic impairments. It's not, E. coli or anything like that. And I think that TDML we have to cut by 54% to make any progress. And I can tell you, we've added to it since that paper was written. And just wanted to see if there's going to be any teeth to any kind of enforcement, because there seems to be kind of a business as usual approach.
Wouldn't that be the North Forks TMDL then?
Which runs into the
They
South Fork,
just
for
started.
sure, yeah. And they've just been working on the North Fork.
Maybe my
section.
geography's off, but.
Well, the South Fork paper dealt with it though.
Okay,
Like,
because it's all part of it.
yeah, we run the headwaters, I guess, run. Because we're included in the discussion, I can
Yeah,
tell you that.
South River to North Fork, and then right here at Bench Bars where the north and south come together.
I think
For the
because
record.
y'all are outside of the MS4 area, unless there's a like direct point source, like water treatment plant that's causing all of this. What DEQ does is basically host these community meetings to get community engagement so that they're applying for some of the grants that I've included like in the packet, but additional ones. It takes a lot of public buy-in from the landowners that are contributing those sources to be able to make the change. But I think staying engaged in their implementation plan development process and making sure your community members are engaged is a good to help start turning the needle in the right direction.
Nesha McCrae at DEQ was leading that program. So there was one further upstream a couple of years ago, and then it's moving south this year, I think. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating to just watch the wheels turn. That's for sure. Anything else for Green? Good luck with your independent water source. Holy mackerel. The news just is talk about endless wheels turning. Hopefully this year we will have a stream overlay district that will establish buffers everywhere on the streams in Emerald County, basically returning us to where we were in the 90s. And early 2000s. And so I don't have a date of adoption for that, but I've been told it's coming, but it's been that for like 3 years. So I will hope that this will be the spring that we actually get there. And I had something else written down here. What did you mention? And now I forgot.
And that's just guidance though for you.
No, it will be removing the exemption for disturbances under 10,000 square feet, which has been a huge loophole that people have used for
Taking it out
additive
by right.
mess. And so
You have to
there,
have a special use permit.
well, it will be regulation of some sort. It won't be in a special use permit. It will be a water control permit type thing,
So,
WPO permit.
yeah, so back in 24, we don't have enough time for me to go on this, but back in 2014, our ordinance was based on the Chesapeake Bay Act. And then under the guise of a routine code cleanup, when there was these erosion sediment control ordinances, they merged the two together. When they did that, taking our stream buffers and putting them under erosion sediment control meant that the ordinance now only applied when 10,000 square feet of soil was. Prior to that, they were permanent. So what this is doing is taking it back out from the erosion sediment control ordinance, putting it on its own, so they will be permanent buffers more in line with the Chesapeake Bay Act again. So we're basically going back in many ways to what we had in 2014 with some adjustments and improvements. Should have never been in the first place, but you know.
There was a big push in 2014 to make it as easy as possible for developers and.
I think Albemarle is the first non-tidewater locality to adopt additional provisions of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, like this riparian buffer overlay district. Yeah,
Cool.
based from Wetlands Watch. So sucks that we're going back in time, but they're taking the most actions.
Well, I mean, we were the first to adopt the Chesapeake Bay Act, and then
Outside.
effectively we left it in 2015 quietly without anyone knowing. And then now we're basically re-entering it again. So whatever praise that we won for doing that before, we probably should have lost that praise in 2014.
Have to fight to get it back, that's for sure. And a question I will leave with you is the state of the website redo, because I haven't looked in a while. Is there still a place for people to access the old documents, state of the basin, those kinds of things, which is sort of that resource that the agency was always hoping to be the one-stop shop for people to go find stuff.
Yeah, we have all aside from the state of the basin report, all of the previous planning efforts related to the Rivanna River on the About the Basin page.
Okay.
And we tried to find an archived or online version of the state of the basin report, but
Yeah, it was on your website for over a decade.
I'll check with our
manager. Could I ask him about that?
Really didn't want that to sit on the shelf.
We have a paper version, so it's not gone.
I probably have a digital version. I may, I'm not promising,
I'll
but
reach
I
out
may.
again to our website manager, but we did ask about that one specific.
I have a pretty good archive.
Well, and you can also go to the
Yeah.
Internet Archive as well.
Right.
The who archive?
Oh, so that you know all.
Internet Archive tries to archive every web page.
Way back.
The Wayback Machine, yeah.
The Wayback Machine,
We'll
correct?
make sure that gets. Try our.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the mother or whatever you want to put analogy. It's the grail for this group, I think, and the goals in there were really huge and visionary. And it took a lot of effort to get that done.
And the update. Now we just need to live up to
So I think we should use it.
get it out, wave the banners more here. That'd be good for all the communities. All right. Anything else from the city?
Well, I'll just say, this new city manager, I'm gonna toot his horn. Sam Sanders has really been, as far as I can see, and I'm a critic of the government the last 7-8 years. He's been really putting, he's been putting in the time and effort and doing what he says he's gonna do, and we've got a lot more people hired. And so as it pertains to this group, the urban forester person that the city's hired has been working hard and clearing out exotics in the park, planting trees, and he's making a good start at what has been lagging for a number of years. So it's nice to see.
Great. Well,
I'd second that. And just quickly, I think the biggest thing I can think of is the city recently acquired 22 acres directly along the Rivanna River. For those who aren't familiar, that is where the old circus grounds, it's where the Rivanna River Company is. Where the Rivanna River Company sits would have been turned into a parking lot, and there would have been 20-foot retaining walls right next to the river. Fortunately, the city was able to purchase those 22 acres, and in the short term, it will basically be an extension of Riverview Park with the Rivanna River Company being preserved. But longer term, I think it's a huge opportunity to think about how can it be activated while also preserving the Rivanna River and the natural environment there. And I think it could be a catalyst moment for the city actually implementing our urban Rivanna River corridor plan. So I don't know what, if any, role this body may play in that, but I think it's a very real opportunity. And then the second thing is, beginning in a month or two, our city staff is going to begin a process of evaluating and looking at all of our local environmental policies, and including critical slopes, floodplain regulations. And I hope it will be an opportunity to model some of what Albemarle has done and introduce as many discretionary decision points as possible along the Rivanna River corridor and in areas that are floodplains, which I think is a very important action to take in the context of the city having increased by right density throughout the entire city. I think when we've done that, it makes a ton of sense to have the strongest environmental regulations as possible as a component of that. So I think the expertise that you have and members of this commission may have may be very useful to be a part of the city's process. Quite frankly, I think there are many counselors and maybe staff members who haven't thought about or were engaged in these issues yet. So it's a potential positive opportunity, but I'm also kind of worried, but we'll see how it plays out.
well, not having building in the floodplain, not just the floodway, but the whole floodplain, maybe a huge step forward and would save the circus grounds for you.
Right, exactly.
Be applied for.
Exactly.
Which was my shock when I heard that. I went, what?
Exactly.
So anyway.
Yeah, that's a great development. I also say, I was years ago on the Citizens Committee on Environmental Sustainability, which was in many ways a cross-jurisdictional committee that came up with some really great environmental ideas that continue to resonate now. Like the LEAP program was invented by that committee. And I was sad to see it disbanded. And there was a promise that it was going to be like reformed, and it never happened. So I would love to see a cross-jurisdictional environmental citizens committee reformed, where, we could, those ideas about great environmental ideas could be brought forward again.
Maybe it can be under the umbrella of the RRBC.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to see
A
it.
quarterly meeting focused on or something.
And the Natural Heritage Committee also have brought forward that there are plants that are rare in Albemarle County that are also rare in the city of Charlottesville. One of them is erect dayflower, which occurs on that property that the city just purchased. So that's actually a rare species in the county, and most people don't even know it's there. So
Fantastic. Thank you. Anything else, ladies, before we close up?
Motion to adjourn.
Wow, no,
Second.
that is
Thanks, you guys.
another wonderful RRBC meeting. Thank you all for coming
Thank you.
and
everyone wants to see the plan.
carrying forward.
You didn't know that.
No, I'm not getting this right. This is, but this is
Thank you,
also.
David and Jackie, for coming.
Thank you.
This is also the first plant that a conservation law was passed to protect in the United States.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Dave?
Yeah.